you don't have to say everything in order to be telling the truth.
Ooh, you don't have to say everything in order to be telling the truth. You got really passionate about that, and I loved seeing it. I'm like, bring it.
Okay, I'll pipe it down.
Your face even got a little red, which I like never see. Hey, everybody, and welcome to season 2 of the Leading Smart podcast. Tim, can you believe we're here? Season 2.
It's hard to believe. Like when we started this, we were like, maybe we're only even going to do one season.
Well, you were like,
That's true.
maybe we're only going to do one season.
I'm like, this will never work.
Yeah. And that was my favorite part. I think we were like, I don't know, 2 weeks in, and you're like, okay, so season 2. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
we're doing this?
Yeah, without a break. Like we just went from 1 week to the next.
So I wanted to start out our time together today reflecting a little bit on season 1.
Yeah.
So all about pastoral succession. Would love to hear from you. What are you most proud of? And by the way, I didn't tell Tim what I was going to ask him, so I'm putting you on the spot here. What are you most proud of about season 1?
Yeah, I got to kind of watch them as they came out each week. You know, just I think the quality of what we put out. You looked great. We were in a great studio here in Chicago. And I think we had some really great content. We got some, just buzz, people emailing or people commenting on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, that they listen. And we got just some really good engagement on it.
Yes, was really glad to hear that more people than just my dad listen. Hi, Dad. But yeah, no, as I have been talking to our Leading Smart community through discovery calls or engagements and coaching, people will say, it sounds like I'm talking to two long lost friends. I'm like, well,
cool.
You kind of are.
Yeah.
So that was what I was most proud of, was just people feeling like they really got to connect with us. And that's what this is all about. So.
Yeah. And the purpose of that whole season was just for it to be evergreen, meaning like a lot of churches aren't looking at succession today, but 4 years from now they will be, and they can pull that up and hopefully find some great content to help them take some steps.
Exactly. Well, this season we're switching it up. We're getting real vulnerable. And we are talking all about 40 lessons in 40 years, because this year marks 40 years in ministry for Tim, which is so cool. And so you came to me a few months ago and just said, hey, it's going to be 40 years this year. I've been kind of reflective. What would it look like if I was able to unpack some lessons that I wish I would have known at, 20, what was 40 years ago for you?
18 is when I went into this full time.
Oh, I thought you were joking. Like,
no.
18. Okay, yeah, for real, 18. That's crazy.
Where were you 40 years ago today, by the way?
I was...
Was anyone thinking about you?
God knew me, and that was it. No.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm so young. No, yeah, okay, so 40 lessons in 40 years, and you wanted to just kind of, what do I wish my 18-year-old self would have known? And so in this season, we're going to walk through from kind of day 1 in Tim's ministry journey all the way to today. We're not going to do 40 episodes. Don't worry.
It's all right. We'll keep it to 10 or 12.
Yeah, 10 to 12 episodes. And then we also have some friends joining us throughout, which is really cool. We're going to have Tim's wife, Faith. I'm going to get to interview them about ministry and marriage, which I'm really excited about. And then you've got your Granger OGs.
Yeah.
And then your kiddos, which was really neat.
Yeah, I'm going to sit down with the kids, who are all adults now, obviously, and just talk to them about what it was like growing up in a ministry home in the context of Dad's a pastor at the church that I also attend, and, sometimes had to like let someone go that was maybe the parent of one of their close friends, just all of the stuff that we're going to unpack.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. I feel like we kind of need that music that's like, like on a TV show when you like go back in history. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't do music, so you're
like
gonna have to provide the
chimes,
music.
like wind chimes.
Yeah.
That was my best.
We asked Alexis to like post edit some chimes into right
probably.
There. That'd be great. Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
You graduate from high school and you decided not to go to college, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't like I'm never going to go to college, but I was a junior in high school, actually probably freshman or sophomore, when I felt like, okay, I think I'm supposed to give my life to ministry, to working some way in for the church. And my perspective, I grew up in a, fairly sheltered environment with, so I kind of knew my church and a few churches, but I didn't really know what the church landscape looked like. So for me, like the options were, you're going to be a preaching pastor, and I didn't feel like that was me. You're going to be a student pastor. And even when I was in high school, I didn't like students. So I didn't start liking students till I had them, until we started having students.
And then
my
did
wife
you
and I.
really still like them?
Yeah, I really did.
Okay.
Like I actually really engaged well, and even now as they're adults. Or missionary, or, music, those kinds of things seemed like the option. And so I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like. But in my senior year in high school, this organization kind of recruited me as a senior to come for a year and serve in this ministry and get to travel around the country. And that just seemed like, nowadays we call that a gap year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was just like, I don't really know what I want to do. Why spend the money, on college or starting a program when I don't exactly know what that looks like?
Were your parents disappointed at all? Or were they like supportive of you just kind of?
They were super supportive. Like if they were disappointed, they didn't express it. My sister, who was, she's a year older, but we graduated at the same time. She went off to college. Maybe it saved them money.
Yeah.
Because,
they're like, whew,
but
thank goodness, Tim.
really it was a sense of, and like, I think most kids should go to college. For me, it was a sense of like, I don't really know what I want to do. So let's just do this gap. And then as soon as I got into this organization, which I ended up staying for 9 years,
Yeah.
I just began to get all these opportunities to grow in my leadership and to see, like, we were in hundreds and hundreds, over 800 churches in those 9 years, in person, on site, helping these churches with different things. I just learned so much that it just made sense to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was learning more arguably than I would have at that point in my life in college.
Yeah. And that was Life Action Ministries.
Right.
And what I would know, I was a little surprised when I first found out about this, because I don't know that people perceive you as a musician or as a singer, but you were for 9 years. So tell us about Life Action.
So they recruited me as an audio technician.
Okay. Behind the scenes.
A front of house, yes, behind the scenes, but a front of house tech person. This was a team that traveled around the country putting on like multimedia productions. So we'd set up 13 slide projectors and a movie projector and screens, and we were our own roadies. So we would set up, we'd, roll into a church at 10 o'clock in the morning and set up for 4 hours and then do the rehearsals and then do the show, which there was like a God and Country show. There was a revival oriented show. And we did these in churches that sat 150. We did these in arenas that sat 10,000 people.
Wow.
And everything in between. That first year, we did over 250 different shows in different cities across the country in a 10-month period. It was pretty intense, but man, amazing experience when you're 18, barely 18.
Mm-hmm. And then remind me, because you met Faith through Life Action, but you didn't, like, yeah. How did you guys meet through Life Action again? Because was she part of it when you started, or she came in later?
She came later.
Okay.
She was still in college. And my second year, they were short on singers. They had plenty of tech people. So I don't know that they ever turned my mic on, but they did recruit me to be a singer for the second year. And then at the end of that second year, Faith was recruited from this organization at college to come. She was at the same college my sister attended.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister, this is back in, snail mail, she cuts out Faith's picture out of the yearbook and sends it to me and says, "This girl's coming your way. You need to watch for her. She's amazing."
Aww.
So Faith came, and I met her at the door when she was dropped off. And I said, my job is to carry your luggage and show you where your cabin is. That wasn't really my job. I just made it up.
And show you the rest of your life.
And I wasn't that cheesy, I don't think.
Oh, man.
But I did. I was very convinced. In fact, I wrote in a journal 7 days later, I'm going to marry this girl.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It took a year for her to think the same thing.
Come around.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for the episode where I get to interview Faith and Tim.
We'll
I'm
talk
excited
about
about that. Okay. Well, but also, just a side note, what a lot of people don't know about you is that you are a musician. You played the French horn.
I played the French horn. I actually won a national competition in Seattle, Washington,
In high school,
senior year of high school,
That's amazing.
playing the French horn.
Yeah.
There
But you
was
didn't
probably only 3 people in the competition. I don't really remember.
But you won. That's what matters.
I won.
Yeah. But you didn't play French horn as a part of Life Action.
I did not. I gave
Okay.
up my French horn playing as soon as I left high school.
And you had to raise your own funds for that, right?
Yeah, for the 9 years at Life Action, we all, they said, "Hey, we'll offer you a job. Now go raise money to pay for yourself,"
Of course.
like a missionary. And so had to raise money and did that for the whole 9 years. When Faith got there, she was raising money. We got married. Then we were funding our own salary together.
Wow. And okay, so for 9 years, so how many of those years were you guys married?
We were there together 7 years. We were married for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about your transition to then Granger.
Yeah.
So you were there for 9 years or 18. So now you're like, what, 27-ish?
That's great math, Holly.
Thank you. I'm really
so impressed.
I get really nervous or doing math around Tim because this guy's like a walking calculator and I can barely do like 2 + 2. So thank you. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Granger Community Church was this startup church that I was hearing about. We lived in Niles, Michigan, and Granger, Indiana. Sounds like a long way from Michigan. It's like 15 minutes to the church. Meeting in a movie theater, and we kept hearing about it. And, at that point, think again, I've been in 800 different churches. So I'm thinking like, how different can this church be? How creative can it be? I've seen church. And yet God was doing something there that was super amazing. And we just started attending. And it was the first time I'd been at a church that was focused for people who aren't comfortable with church. Mm-hmm. Which was a new thing. Like the 800 churches I'd been at, that's not who they were. And so that just kind of like, this is actually a place I could actually invite a friend that doesn't even like church, and they'll get something out of it. They'll enjoy it. And just, so I just began, we just loved it. And soon after we started attending, they started talking about coming on staff. This church was 200 probably at the time. Mark
Beeson was the senior pastor there. How old was he at this time?
He had just turned 40. So he was late 30s. He was your age.
Yeah.
You're mid 30s, right?
Well, no, I think I'm 30. I'll be 37 this year.
So
yeah. I need to hold on to mid 30s until I'm like 37. I feel like that's late 30.
No. Oh. 38.
Okay.
Is the soonest that you're late 30s.
That is great news.
Absolutely.
Whew, you just made my day. Okay. That's interesting. So you were late 20s. He was 40. And did he like ask you out of the bat to be executive pastor, or was it just like, come and join and we'll figure this out together?
I think in hindsight, he knew he was going to need me to be. They had an executive pastor who probably, 6 months, maybe a year after I got there, was terminated. Not his life, just his job.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yeah, just, so we had, they invited me in to be the small groups pastor and the stewardship pastor, kind of a combo dual hat thing. I actually never did small groups because I got there and they're like, hey, just jump into stewardship. And then within a few months, they said, hey, would you be the executive pastor?
Mm-hmm. And what was really interesting about that season, because I just knowing you now for a decade, well, you were there for 20 years. So first of all, that's a huge deal.
Yep.
But they also, Granger was just so supportive. And I'm curious to hear from you if this was just like part of the culture or if you really like fought for this. But you wrote several books. You started the Wired Churches Network. You started your LeadingSmart blog back then. So kind of helped you become a thought leader in this space because Granger was on the forefront of thinking differently about church. Was that something that was like really important to Mark and a culture he set out to create? Or was it just the team there kind of, well, and we're also going to unpack this more probably in the episode with the Granger OGs, but
yeah,
I feel like this is an important transition from like late 20s, no idea what it looks like to be a like executive leader to you becoming a published author of 8 books at the time you had left, or
7.
Yeah.
So what was interesting was don't
not 8, Holly, you're way off. It was 7.
What was interesting, like in those early years, we were just like sponges. So we were, picking up the phone or getting in the van or flying across the country to learn from other churches because we didn't know anything. Like we were just making it up as we went. And the church was kind of like right before I got there was kind of in a slump, had gone through a pretty traumatic just conflict. And so a bunch of people had left, like the whole staff left except for one guy. And all of the elders quit except for one guy. So this was a church like kind of in turmoil, and I didn't know that as an attendee. Found out soon thereafter when I came on staff, but had lost some ground. The church was 5 years old. It was the first year we'd lost attendance, and then after that for the next 18 years, we were at exponential growth and grew to over 6,000. But in those early years, we were just learning from other churches, and so we just kind of made a commitment, like when we get a chance, we're gonna help other churches. And I'd probably only been there maybe 3 years when somehow we just got on the map with churches across the country. And they were just calling like, how are you doing that? And what are you doing? And I think what was unique was we were kind of in a cornfield in Indiana, not kind of, we were actually in a cornfield in Indiana. And so people were learning from Saddleback or North Point or Willow at the time. And they're like, it made sense to them that there's a mega church in a metropolitan area with, 4 million people within driving distance of the church. It didn't make sense that a church in a cornfield in Indiana was growing like it was. And so, so what we had to do is we had to kind of like, we were just so busy answering the phone, and it was distracting at the time from what we were trying to do, which is, reach people through these weekend services. And so we just started doing like, okay, yes, we want to help you, but we'll help you twice a year at this seminar or this workshop, or we'll put some books out there, or we'll start writing some blogs. And it just helped us focus our desire to resource the church. And we put in our vision statement. I would love to see churches do this. I don't see it a lot, but we put in there like one of our core 7 pillars of our vision statement was resourcing the Big C church.
That's cool.
And so we actually expected our staff to be out there speaking, writing books, publishing things. It was actually an expectation because that's one of our jobs as a church.
That is awesome. And yeah, very rare. I feel like it's usually the opposite. That's really cool. Okay, anything else about Granger? There's so much to unpack there, which we will throughout the season. But anything else about Granger before we talk about you transitioning to consulting?
I don't think so. We are going to talk, I think, in the next episode about just longevity and the benefits and having, being at Granger for 20 years and just, and I don't want to spoil the next episode, but there was just some things that you only get through longevity, through being there for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So then, and this is my favorite part of your...
It's because it's when we met.
Exactly. I remember you coming, and I think I mentioned this on our last season, but your interview for Vanderbloemen and in your bedazzled, I say the bedazzled jeans, affliction jeans.
Yep. But all my clothes came from the buckle at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a big deal because we even promoted you at Vanderbloemen as this quote that was like, I'm going to butcher it. You probably remember it, but like, I was a skeptic, then I was a customer, and now I'm a raving fan. It was something like that of speaking of Vanderbloemen, but specifically using a search firm, because at Granger, you guys had prided yourself on internal. I mean, the stats were crazy. It was like, how many hires were internal versus external?
Yeah, we had, when I left staff, we had 129 on staff, and only 6 of us had come from the outside.
Yeah, that's wild.
123 were attending the church, volunteers before they came on staff.
Yeah, so it was a really big deal when you guys partnered with Vanderbloemen. And anyway, and then it was a massive deal. I remember William being like, you guys will never believe, Tim Stevens called and he's interested in what a transition might look like and how cool would it be if he came and joined us, because we were in a season, I had already been there for 3 years at that point at Vanderbloemen, and we were in a season where all of the consultants were still reporting to William. And that was, or I can't remember if it was William or our COO, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It was getting to be, and it was a lot of people. I think we had, 6 maybe at the time, or 5 or
4 when I came on.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were growing pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And so William was really feeling the need to like have a leader, an executive leader that could really help build and scale. And William is the first to say, I mean, he's the entrepreneur, builder, and you're more just gifted in the scaling systems and processes. And so anyway, we were just thrilled when that happened. But that was a massive transition for you guys as a family. I mean,
it was. Yeah.
After 20 years in one place, but at the time that you moved, how old were you when you moved to Texas?
27.
No, no.
47. 20 years later.
I was like, okay, now that's
now
not
I can't do math.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, see, I shouldn't have asked you. I should have known to just add 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're 47. So after 47 years in the Midwest, in basically 2 states, Indiana and Iowa, right? Yep.
And Michigan, but Michiana we call it because it was Michigan and Indiana,
Yeah, but moving everybody to Texas.
It was when I called William. So I got to a sense of like and we can unpack this another time, but like a sense of like, okay, I think my season really is up. I think Mark Beeson needs a different kind of leader for this next season next to him, and so just began talking to him about transitioning, and that was probably a 1-year conversation. But then when I picked up the phone, called William, I just said, like, I didn't even know if I was marketable. Like, I don't even know, like I've been in one
Which
place
is
for,
so wild that you would think that.
I really didn't know. And I didn't know what was out there. And so I called him because he ran a search firm. I just said, hey, do I have any marketable skills? Are there any things? And he sent me probably 5 or 6 different profiles. But he said, hey, Tim, you can look at these, but I really want you to look at this 6th one, which was one for Vanderbloemen to come on and be the vice president of consulting. And so we began talking about that pretty quickly. And I had told him early on, I said, I feel like I need to move. I was, small town, just, it felt like we need to probably move and let the next leaders at Granger, carry on what was happening there. And if I move, I don't want to be in the snow belt anymore. I'm tired of shoveling snow. I mean, just super practical.
Well, and also, if I can go here, you did a life plan.
Yeah.
And one of the takeaways from the life, this like stuck with me because I probably heard this story when I was in my late 20s and you came to Vanderbloemen. But I just remember you saying that you went through this life planning process to help you figure out what was next. And one of the takeaways was that you didn't want to be in the snow belt anymore. Like you wanted to be somewhere where it was warm and sunny, which I think that was just so thought provoking to me as like a young, like in my 20s, that was part of your decision making. But I thought that was so cool that because it impacts everything. Weather impacts so much of your mood and your perspective and all the things. And
at the time, William was thinking about opening a Chicago office. And so kind of threw out the possibility of like, you could actually stay in the Chicago region. I'm like, William, if I'm going to move, I'm going to move south. I'm not going to shovel anymore. So, and my wife didn't have that sense at all. She'll talk when we interview her. She loved the 4 seasons and all of that. And so it was a difficult transition for her, but something we just knew that was the right time. And so, moved to Houston, fall of 2014.
Yeah. And you moved, Taylor was still in school. And so you did long distance for a while. You were in Texas for how many months before the family?
Yeah, it was a full school year. So we had 2 girls that had launched out, were in college. Our oldest boy was a junior, started his senior year of high school right when I started at Vanderbloemen, pretty much the same week. And our youngest was starting 8th grade. And so we chose to keep the family there, and then I just commuted back and forth to Houston for the school year to let them finish their senior year and 8th grade year. And then, Hunter went off to college, and then TK moved down to Houston with us and started high school.
Yeah. And you were at Vanderbloemen for 6 years.
Yeah.
And really in that high growth, we were in our, technically our second office, but really like our first kind of big boy
right.
or big girl office. And then those 6 years were just massive growth for us at Vanderbloemen that you really led. So you built the team, you said 4 consultants when you got there. And then when you transitioned, how many did we have?
Yeah,
pre-COVID, I guess we should say.
One of my first trips up that fall when I was still commuting back and forth, 2 of those 4 consultants quit on the same day. Like I'd been there like 30 days. I didn't even know them really yet. Oh, and unrelated to each other, just Tammy and Jeff both transitioned out. And so, and William, he said, well, you said you wanted to build a team.
Yeah, here you go.
But when I left, we had 10 consultants, including myself, and really got to build out the succession work that you and I continue to talk about now. And which was just absolutely just fulfilling and just, able to kind of enter. We did a whole season about it. I don't need to talk about it again, but I'm passionate about the fact you get to like be in a pivotal moment in the life of a church and the life of a pastor and help them navigate that well. We did a lot of work with staff culture. You and I helped design the culture tool and began to use that, and then do consulting on the backside of that, as well as helping churches transition staff.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it was 2020.
Yeah.
And the world shut down. And that was a really scary time for Vanderbloemen. I think all of us were like, what is going to happen? Because
will churches ever spend money again, ever?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't meet and didn't know when they were going to be able to meet again. And all churches revolve around Sunday, and gathering people together, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And so, I think it was the month of March and April, we had 0 contracts come in. And it was, very like, what is going to happen? And then I think I remember in May, we got our first one again. And so, we're wrestling through that as an executive team and having to make hard decisions and work alongside, William to support his vision through it all. And what I appreciate about that time was he just really wanted to serve the church. Like, let's just everything we can do to resource and serve. So we did lots of content around the PPP loan and all of that. So that was what was front of mind for me, is just trying to make sure that we were able to serve churches as best as possible through content when contracts were not coming in. But what was going on in your mind over there at the beginning of 2020, Tim Stevens?
So I'll rewind the clock maybe 6 months from that. So mid 2019, Willow Creek. A lot of people know that church and the history at that point. 43-year history, 42 of them pretty good, and then a horrible, kind of leadership scandal, and then that involved the senior pastor leaving, and then they called us in and said, "Hey, could you help us with this senior pastor search?" And so I led that search and just started working with the elders. And I was, it was a heavy load to lift, and so I was in Chicago quite often, probably every 3 to 4 weeks, meeting with the elders, and just really my heart just kind of growing towards these people, these 8 elders that were trying to lead the church in this huge just gap of leadership. And so I remember coming home. It was in February, so this was a month before the world shut down. No one had heard the term COVID-19 at that point. And just tell my wife, like, I feel like it's like something's going on inside me for Willow. And she said, "Are you going to go back into the ministry?" And I said, "No." Like,
you can say it. It's your podcast. You get to say whatever you want, Tim.
Heck no.
Hell no. I'll say it for you. Yeah.
Because the 2 things I said is I'm never going to live in the snow belt again. And I don't want to serve a church anymore. I want to serve the church. I don't want to serve a local church. I want to serve lots of local churches. And so those were 2 like non-negotiables. She'd heard me say it 1,000 times, and I said it again in that conversation. But I said, I can't deny, like, I'm just feeling for these people. And I just feel like, we would be talking to candidates, tapping on the shoulder saying, "Hey, would you consider being a senior pastor here? We think you have the leadership." And people would say that, like, heck no, because why would I want to run into that mess? Like, it was just a blazing inferno. And so I'm like, someone's got to say yes. I mean, this church had impacted me, impacted us, like over the years. And so that's what I was feeling inside. And so they settled on a candidate. His name's Dave Dummett. Has become one of my best friends. But Dave said yes. So the world shut down, I want to say March 13th, 14th, 15th, something like that. March 31st was the day that the elders offered the role to Dave, and he said yes. The next day, he calls me and says, "Hey, I'm going to need an executive pastor. Would you do this with me?"
Wow.
And so at the same time, we're in the midst of these conversations as a lead team at Vanderbloemen of basically we got to lay a bunch of people off because we don't know when we're going to get work again. And so I remember William and Sutton said to me, I think it was on a Monday, basically by the end of the week, you need to tell us, half your team, you need to tell us, I don't think it was half, maybe it was but it was 4 people on your team that you're going to have to let go, and you just have to let us know who. Tuesday, I get this call from Dave.
Man.
And then I call those guys and said, "Hey, I just got this call, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, but I don't want to let 4 people off if I'm actually going to be leaving within the next couple of weeks." And so they basically gave me an extension, said, "Hey, you can have till next Friday to make a decision if it's going to be you and 2 or 3 others, or if it's going to be you're going to stay." And so they were super gracious and they probably saw the writing on the wall before I did.
So you said yes. You decided.
I said yes.
Yeah.
I said yes. So I got the call on April 1st from Dave. April 8th.
So it wasn't April Fool's joke. It was for real.
Didn't even think about the fact that it was an April Fool's Day when I got the call. No, it wasn't a joke. And then by April 10th, I was actually on staff at Willow. So 9 days later. Which,
I mean, we could do
whirlwind.
Like 1 million episodes just on Willow. But yeah, there's so much to unpack there, which we will in future episodes of the lessons that you've learned. I feel like we could do a whole season on lessons from Willow. But yeah, of just what I saw you lead through, you and Dave, together of just perseverance and persistence and consistency in a time where a whole community was really hurting.
Yeah.
Well, the whole world was hurting. I mean, that was COVID, that was Black Lives Matter, there was so much happening culturally worldwide, and Willow had their own pain as well. And so we'll be able to unpack that together, but that was really neat to just see you guys face the hardest season of leadership in your entire life and do it with such grace. It's really cool.
Yeah. And you didn't really know kind of the impact it was having on you until later. I've been talking to Dave about that recently because he's transitioning out of his role after 5 years. And just, the weight of just the relentless just work where you're just kind of running, especially in those early couple of years, you're just running into fires and landmines, one after another, just the body blows begin to stack up.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing you're doing exactly the right thing to help this church heal.
Yeah, exactly. And then talk to us about feeling like it was time to wrap up at Willow to go into consulting full-time again.
Yeah. So after having moved back into the snow and working for a local church, both two things I said I wouldn't do, when I came to Willow, I told Dave and others that I talked to there that I said, I won't be here for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to get back to serve. I absolutely believe I'm called to Willow at this time for this season, but I do want to get back into serving the Big C church, lots of churches. And so just started, and I won't unpack all of the specifics of it, but just started feeling that sense and having a conversation with Dave. We were in some financial, we had to just cut, tens of millions of dollars from the budget over those first 3 years. And we were almost there, but we had a little bit more we needed to cut. And that's when I just walked into Dave's office and said, hey, Dave, I don't think we're going to get there without eliminating some significant positions. I think you should eliminate my position. And I said, I think we're just too fat at the top for the size of church that we are. And so I think if we had one less executive pastor and there'd be some just structural simplifying that would come out of that, then I think we can close our gap. And so he said no. Heck no.
Heck no.
He said no. And then he said, let me think about it. And then over 3 or 4 days, he says, okay, we should at least think about it. And then he said, we should pull some other people in. And we just started kind of unpacking it over the next few weeks. And then I transitioned off and launched LeadingSmart.
Yeah.
Was a side gig, side hustle for over 20 years. And just, it's like, let's pour myself into this. And
here we are.
It's
been a little over 2 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yep.
And you're doing it and you're crushing it.
And we're doing it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is probably going to be our longest episode, I would say, besides like the one with you and Faith and your kids and the OGs probably. I imagine those will be, because those have multiple people. But I imagine for many of you listening, this might be your favorite, because just to hear Tim's story, and if you're like me, I'm 36, I'll be 37 this year. And I mean, I could just ask you a million questions, Tim, of just being in that age where I'm in the building phase of my career and my marriage, and it just became a new parent. It's just like, teach me everything, So I just really wanted to take some time to make sure that we talk through each of these transitions, which we'll unpack together. But for now, okay, so like we said at the beginning, there's 40 lessons that we're kind of combining into about 10 to 12 episodes. And so, Tim, we have 5 lessons that we want to share here in our introductory episode with your transition. So walk us through these together. I love this first one. Everything builds toward the next, which is so hard to see when you're in it. It
is. And that's something I've talked to a lot of younger leaders about recently, is they're in something and it's hard and they don't even know why they're there and they feel stuck. And I just say, like, you don't know until maybe 10 years, 20, maybe you don't know till a long time from now why that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I look back at, growing up in like a fairly legalistic, rules-oriented church, and can see totally why that built me into who I am now. I can see like working in raising my own salary and working in a nonprofit. All of the pieces along the way so now in the work I'm doing, I've worked at a nonprofit. I've worked at a faith-based business. I've worked at a church plant. I've helped scale a church. I've been able to help turn a church around. Like all of those pieces in the moment just feel like pieces, but they build towards what's next, and they give you the experience you need. And I think that's just in whatever you're in. If it's hard, it's building you into. You may not be able to see it right now.
Yeah. You might not see the forest through the trees when you're just looking at the tree. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The second one is knowing when it's the right time to move. Do you feel like you always knew in the moment that it was the right time, or is it like a hindsight thing where you're like, oh yeah, that was the right time?
Probably a little bit of both. So I think I've only I've moved 4 times, or maybe 5 times. I guess LeadingSmart would be the 5th in 40 years. So I'm not an expert at moving. I haven't done it every couple of years, but I do think sometimes it's like it's the right next move. The only one that I think I really felt called was the Willow role, where it's like I'd always hear people say, God called me, and I'm like, you just wanted to move to Hawaii. God didn't call you to Hawaii. You just wanted to go there. Who are you lying? But I really felt like I understood what it meant to be called, because it didn't make any sense.
What do you mean when you say called? And is it because it didn't make sense?
I think because it didn't make sense, and there was just something going on like inside, which is, I guess, hard to put words to. Just like my heart was there before I even knew anything was going to be on the table. Like there was no job there, but yet my heart was there. And then you look at all of the pieces, kind of the surrounding pieces that fall into place really fast and really quickly, like literally like a 7-day decision. And it's just like, that was exactly, God was piecing that together long before I could have ever figured it out. I'm a logical person, like I plan far ahead. And so for that to happen so quickly, and here I am 5-6 years later and have zero regrets. It was exactly the right decision.
That's awesome. Okay, the third one is push versus pull. What in the world do you mean with that lesson?
I think just anytime someone leaves someplace to go to the next, there's usually a little bit of push and a little bit of pull. It could be 100% one way or the other, but often there's a mix of that. So meaning you're at church right now and the board is driving you crazy, and hypothetically, yeah. And so, but some other place calls you, and you might be like, you're 80% pulled, like you're pulled towards the mission of that next thing. But honestly, there's a little bit of a 20% push, because if the board wasn't driving you crazy, you might stay a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a big push. Sometimes it's a push because you got terminated. And so I'm out. I got to find something else, whether I'm pulled to it or not. I just have to find, I have to put bread on the table. I need to make some money. But sometimes it's just like when I went to Life Action out of high school, that was probably an 80 to 90% pull. Like just my heart, and the mission of that organization pulled me towards that. So I say that to say, just tune into that and kind of figure what that is. Like how much of that's a push, how much of that is a pull. I don't think, if you can help it, you should never leave when you're like in the doldrums in the valley. What did William used to say? We used to get so many calls on Monday mornings.
Yeah, never make a decision on Mondays. Yeah. Because
they just preached a sermon and someone told them it was a horrible sermon or whatever, or right after the Christmas season or right after Easter. So, but just kind of tune into whether it's a push or a pull.
And then classic me, I kind of already spoiled the
we talked about the
fourth one. We talked about that, and like knowing when it's the right time to move, but calling versus next right move. So yeah, you already kind of shared on that, but anything else that I
don't think so. And then the last one is just like, pay attention to not burning bridges.
You're so good at this, Tim. I've seen you not burn bridges.
I would say
often. So good.
I don't know. Anecdotally, like 75+% of pastors or church staff, when they leave a church, they burn bridges.
Yeah.
They feel like they've got this like justice mindset, and they feel like they just have to stand up for right, and these people treated me wrong, and so they blow. Like they had 6 years of great ministry, and then they had like a few months of just a really tough time, and then they just kind of go ballistic, go nuclear as they're leaving out the door, and they burn all of the bridges, and no one there remembers the 5.5 years of great ministry. All they remember is the things that they said and their attitude on the way out. So bite your lip, keep your freaking mouth closed. I mean, there are things that in any place that you leave or any place that you're at, there are things you don't agree with and things that drive you crazy and things that you wish you could change. If you couldn't change it in 5.5 years, you're not going to change it by making a speech or writing an email or blasting people on an article on your way out the door. So just smile, make a list of all of the great things about that organization and make that your stump speech anytime anyone asks you why you're leaving.
Yeah.
You don't have to say everything in order to be telling the truth.
Ooh. You don't have to say everything in order to be telling the truth. You got really passionate about that, and I loved seeing it. I'm like, bring it.
Okay, I'll pipe it down.
Your face even got a little red, which I like never see, which was and I wonder too if it's like, because what you guys went through at Willow of just, you were the punching bag for a lot of people for a long time. And I wonder, do you think that's part of your passion around that, or it's just seeing it over the last 40 years?
I think it's seen it over 40 years because
Yeah.
I felt that pretty strongly before going to Willow. And I have a real heart for a lot of the people that left Willow, carried a ton of weight for a season and left, and they were pretty hurt and broken. And I have a lot of compassion for that.
Yeah. Well, man, I feel like that was a mic drop moment right there, that you don't have to say everything to be telling the truth. So now we get to hard right turn to our fun segment.
Do we have time for this? I think we do.
Why not? Tim, it's your podcast. We have time for whatever
We can do whatever we want.
I have to keep reminding you of that. This is your podcast.
I didn't. Thank you. I didn't check with our audio tech Tom ahead of time, but we're going to see if this works. We're going to try to use some Chat GPT, and I'll hold my phone up to the mic here.
I love it. We're calling this story time with Tim.
This is story time with Tim. So before I turn, I call him Chad. We call him Chad.
Yeah, we do. We call your Chat
GPT is just too long of it's just too many letters. It's like Chad. So
Yeah.
This is our friend Chad. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have Chad tell a story. So here's what you need to do. You need to pick a genre. This is up to you.
Yep. Let's do romance.
Romance. Okay. If I forget this when I talk to Chad, let me know.
Okay.
Okay. It's romance. What year is this story set in?
1923.
Romance in 1923. Where in the world does this story take place?
Paris, France.
Okay. Romance in Paris, France, 1923. And pick two other people that you know or that maybe our audience knows that you want to be in the story with you.
Okay, definitely Tim Stevens.
Okay.
Dave Dummett.
Dave Dummett.
And Andy Stanley.
All right. So Dave Dummett, Tim Stevens, Andy Stanley are in this. And are you the villain or the hero?
I'm for sure the hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I figured you would choose. All right. We're going to pull Chad into this. Hey, Chad, how you doing?
Hey, Tim, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going so far?
It's going well. Hey, I want you to tell a story. This needs to be a relatively short story. Let's say maybe 2 paragraphs. This is going to be a romance. It's going to be set in 1923 in Paris. And Holly Tate is the hero, but there's 3 other people in the story. That's myself, Tim Stevens, Dave Dummett, and Andy Stanley. Can you tell us that story?
All right, let's dive in. So in the spring of 1923, in the heart of Paris, Holly Tate, a talented painter with a love for capturing the city's charm, found herself at a quaint cafe along the Seine. There, she met Tim Stevens, a charming writer visiting from America, searching for inspiration for his next novel. As they chatted, they were soon joined by their mutual friends, Dave Dummett, a jazz musician playing in a nearby club, and Andy Stanley, a philosopher and lecturer at the Sorbonne. The 4 of them spent the evening wandering the moonlit streets, sharing dreams, laughter, and a budding romance that would forever mark that spring in Paris.
Okay, definitely didn't expect it to turn it into a romance between me and you. I'm glad it stopped where it did. I was like, this is going to get awkward real fast. Did not even think about that when I was like, Tim Stevens, romance.
Also,
oh my God.
Did you hear I'm a charming writer?
Yes.
That's amazing.
I'm a gifted painter.
You're a
I thought
gifted
the Andy
painter.
Stanley was really funny because he's a lecturer, and he is,
He's a
Andy is
teacher.
like a teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Fantastic. All right.
That was fun.
We'll
Good
try that again
one.
sometime.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 1 of our 2nd season, 40 Lessons in 40 Years. We have a few things to remind you about. So first of all is we have a companion download for this season where you get to download all 40 lessons in one place. So like today we went over 5. You get to download them at leadingsmart.com/podcast or leadingsmart.com/lessons. Either of those 2 places will get it there. Our next episode is called The Long Game. So Tim talked about this earlier, but we're going to be really unpacking longevity, which is something that has spanned Tim's career over the last 40 years, and what lessons we can learn from his experience in that. So we will see you in episode 2.